Hello, bonjour, namaste, ni hao, and ohio everybody. What is going on? It is Galeriot here, and welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi video. And today we're going to be taking a look at the light novel side of things because, of course, 2 days ago in Japan on the 14th of September, we got the release of Danmachi Volume 19, which means today in this video we're going to be taking a look at the spoilers and we're going to be checking out what went down, and I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on exactly what went down. So of course, if you guys go on to enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel for more Danmachi and other Danmachi light novel content, and let me know in the comment section down below your own thoughts on the spoilers of Danmachi Volume 19. I will be doing a community reaction in the near future, exactly like I did for Danmachi Volume 18. So feel free to leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. It'll be truly appreciated because I really want to do a community reaction as well. So let me know your thoughts on the volume down below in the comment section below. Now, you might be wondering, why am I on this screen? Well, as always, whenever it comes to these light novel videos, I have to put a disclaimer out there that this video will contain spoilers for the light novels, especially light novels that have not released in English. So of course, if you guys do not want to get spoiled and you're waiting for the official translation or you're waiting for the anime, come back at a later date and watch this video in the near future. Of course, this is a disclaimer. I'm giving you guys some time to leave this video so that you guys just don't get spoiled immediately by me just going on and on about everything that happens in this light novel. So I'm gonna give you guys 3 seconds before I go back to the volume 19 page and we can start the video officially. So I'm gonna give you guys 3, 2, 1. There you guys go. We're gonna go over to the volume 19 page and we're gonna start talking about light novel volume 19 of the main series, of course. Now, before we get into the actual light novel details as well, remember that this light novel also was bundled with a drama CD wherein Belle basically goes to the past and meets Elise and the rest of the Astrea Familia. So I will be making that in a separate video. I'm not going to be talking about it in this video. I'll talk about it in a separate video and give you guys my thoughts on that later down the line, probably in tomorrow's video. So be sure to keep an eye out on the channel, get subscribed so you guys know when those videos drop, of course, right? But yes, I'm very curious to see exactly how that drama CD plays out, of course, right? I want to see what Amori Sensei does with that, to be quite honest. But yes, of course, light novel volume 19 was a volume that was very much anticipated by a lot of people because it was going to be the light novel where effectively not much was going to happen. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on exactly what I thought was going to happen in light novel volume 19. Not much was going to happen. We kind of saw exactly what was going to happen as well in Sword Art Online 13 because both novels like literally take place alongside one another. Volume 19 of main series and SO 13 were literally alongside one another, right? And of course, volume 19 was also supposed to deal with the aftermath of volume 18, which was a big turning point, of course. If you take a look at the summary right here, right? The school district is back with the war game with the Freya Familia finished. That ship returned to port to Orario, which was in a hurry to deal with the aftermath. Now, of course, remember, the war games with the Freya Familia was such a big moment in the entirety of Orario. So, of course, seeing what was going to happen after the events of that war games was going to be very interesting. And in this light novel, we get to see exactly what went down. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is, of course, the synopsis, which unfortunately doesn't actually have the prologue and chapter 1 in the wiki itself. AP24, big shout out to him for doing a lot of the summary work for this light novel, of course. Give him your kudos in either the wiki or in the wiki Discord, of course, right? He's been hard at work alongside 1 or 2 other people. So big shout outs to all of these guys for getting this across to us. But they did translate some of the prologue and, of course, the chapter 1 stuff when we got the preview a couple of days ago, of course. So if you take a look at the spoilers right here, let's take a look at the prologue and chapter 1, right? So prologue is just Aina and other guild members talking about the war games and the school district coming to Orario. And then I assume chapter 1 is where they do the victory party, of course, right? With the faction alliance members, which is, of course, everybody who faced off against Freya, of course, right? They're having a victory party at Mia's Tavern and Freya Familia members are working there. Now, apparently, this is something that I've heard. I haven't seen a confirmation of this in the comment section of this page, unfortunately, right? But apparently, Eyes was too sick to be a part of this victory party, apparently. Now, for me personally, I don't really mind that. I think it's okay, to be quite honest. A lot of people are wanting that Ai's arc to come really, really quickly, right? However, you have to remember that there's still a lot of the light novel to go. I think he said we were at around 60 to 70% of the light novel when he did volume 16 or 17, right? Which means there's at least another 10 or so volumes to go, basically. And I assume that this volume and volume 20 are probably going to be more of the lore building and basically more of a world building exercise, effectively, especially with the introduction of the school district, which will play a major role against the OEBD and just generally the monsters of the world, effectively, not just Orario. So I'm curious to see where exactly we go from here, but I'm not too fussed about Ai's not having her moment in this light novel as well, because she wasn't even in SO13 as well that much. She only made an appearance at like the end of the light novel, effectively, just for a little bit, and that was about it in SO13. So I'm not necessarily too surprised that she isn't present here either, to be quite honest. And I wasn't expecting a full-blown interaction with Belle, to be quite honest. It wasn't gonna happen. I wasn't expecting any form of discussion with Ai's and Belle in this volume altogether, to be quite honest. I'll be very real and say that maybe in volume 20 we might be able to see it, but I wasn't expecting it in this volume at all, to be quite honest. I really wasn't. And of course I don't know if they have yet, because I've only seen the prologue and the chapter 1 spoilers. I haven't seen anything beyond chapter 1, so we're gonna see if I'm right or wrong in that regards. But yeah, that is something that I found out, was that Ai's was not a part of the victory party, unfortunately. So of course Freya Familia members are working at Mia's Tavern. Now we'll go into more detail about exactly what the Freya Familia members are doing at Mia's Tavern and what their roles are from here on out. But basically, yes, they are working for Mia now. Mia is effectively their captain again in a way, basically, but no, not really at the same time. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But yeah, so you'll see Alan, the, all the Gulliver brothers, Otaro, everybody's working at Mia's Tavern. So they are basically waiters now. They're basically waiters for now. Naza, Samira, Lena, and the other Berbera characters ranked up, so they all leveled up, of course, right? The reward Miak Familia received is enough to get Naza a new arm, but they are still in debt. So, of course, if you guys didn't know, in Volume 18, Naza did lose her arm. I think it was against Berling, if I'm not mistaken. It was one of the Gulliver brothers. I don't remember who it was, but I remember it was one of the Gulliver brothers. But, yeah, they are still in debt because they'll have to get a new arm, and it'll cost a lot, of course, right? Haruhime has been targeted since her level boost was exposed. Of course, when they say targeted, probably for kidnapping and trying to take them for themselves, and probably not from people within Orario. I would be a bit surprised if they go for people within Orario, especially with, the Loki Familia around to, potentially help out, and, of course, the Hestia Familia having such a high status now, especially after the events of, Volume 18, Belle being level 5 and everything. I think it would be stupid to try and even consider trying to kidnap Haruhime within Orario. I think this is more so Familias outside of Orario targeting Haruhime. They set up a system which people take in which people take turns in guarding her. The people guarding her include Belle, Mikoto, Aisha, Samira, Lena, Heirin, and Hegni. Now, of course, Mikoto being level 2, level 2, right? If I'm not mistaken, let me just double check. I could be a little bit wrong here, but I want to say that she is level 2 still. Let's have a look, see. I could be wrong there, because I from my memory, she's still level 2, right? Unless I've completely forgotten. Mikoto is one of those characters where I feel like I should remember, but I keep forgetting Mikoto's levels, honestly. Yeah, Mikoto is still level 2. Okay, that is fantastic. I think she might be able to level up after this. Maybe, but I'd assume so, because, of course, the events of the Freya Familia War Games surely should be enough to help level up people like Mikoto and Wealth, of course, right? But Mikoto, of course, being level 2 and being one of the guards, of course, right? Maybe she's guarding alongside somebody, maybe, who knows, but because she's the guard, I do believe that it's a lot of members outside of Orario. It's a lot of Familia members outside of Orario trying to target Haruhime. That's what I think, at least. Seer is actually Freya is now common knowledge to the gods, but still mostly a secret to people. From my understanding is that Aina knows that Seer is actually Freya, and a couple of others know Seer is actually Freya, but it's not well known that Seer is Freya. I think people think that Freya is in exile, and then the Freya Familia members are still just there working alongside Mia maybe, and then Seer is just Seer, basically. Nobody knows that Seer is Freya, basically. Ryu's hair length and color are completely back to as they used to be, long and blonde. Thumbs up there. And then at the end of the preview, Ryu tells Belle that she wants to join the Hestia Familia. So this is what we knew about the prologue, and of course I made a video about this a couple of days ago, and honestly I think this was fantastic. I think I loved what they said right here. To be quite honest, I was okay with this. We just needed a little bit more expansion on exactly how you know, Freya influenced, or Steer I should say, influenced the Freya Familia members. Did she have any influence? Was she under the Hestia Familia's you know, direction effectively, right? Because it's very likely that Belle is basically the one who's effectively going to control Freya in a way, you know what I mean? She's basically a subordinate effectively, and therefore as a result the Freya Familia is a subordinate of Hestia Familia effectively. That's what I thought initially, right? And turns out that is the case. So let's take a look right here from AP24. The unconfirmed Chinese spoilers from before turned out to be true. So in order for Ryu to join the Hestia Familia, she needs to register to the guild under a new name. Since Gale Wind is officially dead, she registered before under the name Leon. So Ryu Leon was the original one, but of course because she's officially dead, she needs to have a new name. Ryu suggests Ryu Crenell while glancing at Belle shyly, but was rejected by Hestia, who got angry. I love this. Honestly, this is a nice touch, right? I think a lot of people are taking this out of context and are exaggerating the effect of this, in my personal opinion, right? A lot of people are like, oh, why is she calling herself Ryu Crenell? She's becoming a blushing bride again and all that jazz. And, you know, she's fallen in love with Belle, oh, Belle's harem and all that jazz. I don't really think that it's that serious, right? It's a little bit of a gag. I think it's fine. And we still know that Ryu likes Belle. You can still like a person even if they are going to be chasing after somebody else. There's realistically no harm in that. And at the end of the day, I think this is fine. I think a lot of people are blowing this out of proportion, to be quite honest. So for me, it doesn't matter. And it's only for a split second because she ends up using the name Ryu Estrella in the end anyways, which I think is a fantastic touch. It's a really nice touch. And I think that is the way to go about it. I think Amori Sensei made the right decision to not keep it Ryu Crenell. I would have been a bit more annoyed if it had been kept as Ryu Crenell, because it's just a one-off joke slash gag moment where basically, oh, you know, Ryu Crenell, oh, Ryu likes Belle, and then Hestia gets angry. For that moment, I'm okay with it. In the end, it should be Ryu Estrella. I think I'm happy with that. Because Ryu has joined and Belle has become level 5, Hestia Familia got promoted to B rank. Oh my god, they're about to pay those B rank taxes, bro. That is gonna be insane. Their strength should have been enough to be A rank, but to lessen the burden, they were given B rank, and it was impossible to lower their rank further since they have 2 first-year adventures, which makes sense because at the end of the day, you have to remember that technically they have 1 level 6 in the form of Ryu, they have 1 level 5 in the form of Belle, and then the rest of them are like level 2 and 1s, right? So it makes sense for them to basically be given the B rank because there's just that discrepancy, right? And a lot of people are annoyed by that discrepancy, but it happens, right? It happens in so many other familiars as well. So I think it's fine to be given the B rank, and of course they're gonna have to deal with those B rank taxes that they'll have to pay, but it's fine. Also, another condition for Freya or Seer to be allowed to stay in Orario is if she becomes a subordinate god to Hestia. There you go. So I was right in that regards. The former Freya members are staying at the Hestia mansion or Hestia Familia mansion as subordinates, taking turns protecting the home. So even if Hestia Familia is officially B rank, unofficially they are S rank, which makes sense. Now that Ryu has joined, the party's formation has become more stable due to her capability of doing many things. Of course, that is true. Her magic Estrella record is just insane and doing everything basically. It would be better if they have a mage or healer. Belle is considering going below 27th floor, but Aina suggests rest. The first chapter ends with Belle hearing the school district coming. Now that's very interesting. The fact that they mentioned that they need a mage or healer makes me believe that they're gonna get a mage or healer at the end of this. What's gonna be interesting to see is if Nina is going to end up being a mage and healer and she joins the Familia. I haven't seen if that's going to be the case, but it would be cool, to be quite honest. It would be very, very cool. So yeah, I want to just check if there's anything in chapter 1 otherwise. I'm kind of ignoring it. I'm just trying to see if there's anything chapter 1 related. Okay, there's nothing chapter 1 related. So now I think we have to go and check out what happens in chapter 2 onward. So that was basically chapter 1, it seemed like. So basically setting up Ryu to be a part of the familia. The Freya familia basically is a part of the Hestia familia. And of course, Seer / Freya is a subordinate god to Hestia. Now, what do I think about that? You might be asking, what do I think about that? Honestly, I think that is fine, to be quite honest. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Because technically they can still grow. And of course, the Freya familiar members will still have Freya's fauna. Now, a lot of people may think that, but well, what if Freya goes back to her evil ways? But that kind of was solved at the end of the chapter. A lot of people will feel like it's unrealistic, but that's the whole point of these fantasy worlds. They are going to be somewhat unrealistic in some way, shape, or form. This whole, oh, we will make sure you don't go down the wrong path once again, works in these types of stories. And that's why I think, the hostess of fertility members like Chloe, Anya, and Lunor, and then of course Ryu is still around, and of course with Ryu being a part of the Hestia familia means that she will still interact with, of course, Freya and the rest of the Freya familia members. And then of course you have Belle as well to keep an eye out on Seer. So I think overall it doesn't matter realistically, because of the fact that, well, it works in these kinds of stories. I know a lot of people try and make these stories, not just Danmachi, but any other light novel. They try and think of it too realistically, but I don't think it matters too much, to be quite honest. I really don't think it matters too much, and I think it's just gonna work. It's gonna work now. That chapter, I think, is closed pretty much off Seer being evil, quote unquote. I would say not necessarily evil per se, but just having her own motives, and her own motives are selfish motives, right? And I think that chapter, is closed entirely. I think that chapter has been closed entirely. Seer is firmly now one of the good guys, I think. I think she's going to be one of the good guys, and she's going to play a supporting role to the likes of Belle and the rest of the Hestia familia as well. So, and that's the same thing with the rest of the Freya familia, of course, right? So for me, I don't think it's a big difference. I think that is absolutely fine, and I think that was the right way to go with the way they were handling the Freya familia. A lot of us were asking for the Freya familia to basically be integrated into the Hestia familia, or at least some of the members into the Hestia familia, some of the other members go into other familias. Right now, the Freya familia is effectively a part of the Hestia familia. So technically, the Hestia familia is not just 6-7 members, basically. It's not just Belle, Haruhime, Mikoto, Lily, Wealth, and Ryu. It's way more than that, unofficially, of course. But yeah, I think it's still fine. I think it's absolutely fine, and we're gonna see them grow as well. And of course, they will play a role in the great battle against the one-eyed black dragon in the end, of course, right? So it makes sense to keep them around, and it makes sense to make sure that they can still rank up and level up their status. So for me, I think it's absolutely fine. Let me know what you guys think. I'm actually curious to see what you guys think, because I think a lot of people were a little bit worried about that first part of the novel, to be quite honest. The first part of this volume, I should say, was that what are they going to do with the Freya familia? What is the aftermath of, this entire arc that we just went through in volume 16 to 18, right? So I think I'm happy with the culmination. To be quite honest, I was okay with volume 18, so maybe that's why I'm okay with this ending as well, to be quite frank. I think a lot more people will be a little bit more annoyed, but you guys can let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think, of course, right? Now, let's take a look at chapter 2. Belle is kidnapped by Hermes while watching the school district in Melon with Aina. Asfi was given rest for her work so far, while other members from Hermes' family also got vacation time. Hermes used the fact that most of his members aren't with him due to the work they did during the war game, and the fact that he convinced that the goddesses that hated Freya to allow Seer to stay against Belle to force him to come with him. So basically what he did was the help they provided during the war games, and the fact that they managed to, or Hermes managed to help Freya stay as Seer in Orario. He used that to force Belle to come with him, basically, which is classic Hermes, man. Always up to something here. Always up to something. They steal Asfi's boot to infiltrate the school district through the sky, since other routes weren't possible, but they couldn't use it properly and ended up crashing. Good job, Hermes. Good job. Hermes had previously infiltrated in the past, so the school district created an artifact that can see through invisibility, and as a result, they were noticed immediately and the alarm went off. Bro, how Hermes, man, every single time. Hermes used Belle as bait and escaped. Of course he did, taking the invisibility helmet and the boots with him. Belle was found, but the students mistook him for another student, and since Hermes had made Belle wear a student uniform, it was a uniform tailor-made for Belle. So he assumed he planned on doing this from the start. Of course, this is Hermes. We know he's gonna do this stuff, right? Of course. Belle points the students in the wrong direction Hermes went, as they suspected the culprit this time was Hermes again, of course. While Belle was admiring the school district and how structurally similar it is to Aurario, he noticed a Nina, who looked just like Aina. He unconsciously called out Aina, making Nina turn back to look at him when the speakers alerted of intruders. A god and a familiar member wearing a student uniform alongside the description of Belle's appearance. Ah, okay, fair enough. The description of Belle was very critical of him, calling his eyes bloodshot red like a pervert and hair white like a crazy rabbit. Belle was almost surrounded by the students, but he jumped across 10 meters to the other section. They identified him as Belle Cornell, with some disappointed because they wanted to meet him and some calling him a criminal. Belle got caught by Balder, of course. Balder is the god of effectively the the school district. One of the god. I think she's the only god in the school district, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah. But when Elisa came asking where the intruder was, he answered he wasn't here, so they left. Balder called Belle the new hope of Aurario, and Hermes had come to ask Balder to allow Belle to become a student there. Interesting. So basically, interesting. I think the reason why Hermes is wanting Belle to be a student there, right? Of course, I know a lot of people will be annoyed by this by saying like, oh, why is Belle becoming a student again and stuff? But it makes sense because Belle only knows of what happens in Aurario, and he only knows of the present. In order for him to push beyond and learn more about the one-eyed black dragon and this direction that Hermes and Zeus and all these other gods are intending for Belle to take, right? This direction and this path that they want him to follow. He needs to learn about the past in order to be ready for the future. And nobody in Aurario has told him about the past necessarily. Whereas in this situation, of course, the school district has history behind it, of course, right? They helped subdue the Leviathan. They helped effectively set up the barrier for the one-eyed black dragon. They have a lot of history here, and of course they feature one of the most important characters in the story that we've heard about for a very, very long time, not only just in the Danmachi series but in Danmimo as well, and so many other pieces of media. I think we've learned about this character, so we'll discover more about him in this novel, and we discovered more about him in SO13. So it's going to be very, very important for Belle to be a student there. So I get why Hermes effectively made Belle be a student there. But yeah, Belle went back and told his familiar what happened. Lily had already decided to not recruit anyone from the school district since Ryu joined, so as to not anger other familiars by taking everyone from the school district due to their popularity. Look, this one I can kind of get, because of course you don't want to anger your familiars and be the bad familiar. You still want to be in everybody's good in good books. You want to be in everybody's good books. So for me, this is absolutely fine. In all honesty, I get this point, but I do think that they need to recruit at least 1 or 2 members from the school district, and I think that's absolutely fair. I think Lily's just no recruitment policy is a little bit wrong, but that's I get where Lily is also coming from at the same time. Urano said that they will give Belle a break for now, but after that they will make him venture even more into the dungeon. And Hermes said that Belle is definitely going to be sent to fight the one-eyed black dragon, which is why he wants Belle to pay more attention on the outside of Aurario as well. There you go. Thank God. Okay, it's being mentioned here. This is what I was a bit worried about. If it's not mentioned here, then people will get confused as to why he's being a student. But this is exactly why it makes so much sense for him to be learning more about the outside of Aurario as well. Hermes also mentioned wanting to meet the other level 7, and Hestia didn't know there was another level 7, nor that they are in the school district. Hermes also said that this may be Belle's last time off. Balder's condition for taking in Belle secretly is for him to take care of the problematic students, and Hestia accepted Hermes' offer since Belle also wanted to go due to Aina's earlier advice of seeking new things besides the dungeon. Again, I think this makes a lot of sense, right? And I'm actually curious to see exactly how the other level 7 performs. Of course, we know a little bit about him, Of course, thanks to Sword Oratorio 13, and generally thanks to obviously certain other things as well. Like, for example, Don Mimo mentioned that he was the Knight of Knights, of course, right? But we don't know exactly his skills, his power, or anything of that sort. So I'm hoping that this light novel or the next light novel gives us more details about that, of course, right? Belle's brown-haired Hume bunny disguise was given by Hermes. It has a curse made by Osby that has no side effects and makes others unable to recognize him. According to his fake background, Belle's name is Rappy Flemish. What a name! What a name! He was approved to enter the district in the city of Berula, the one they were right before they reached Melon, but due to family circumstances, he had to join them in Melon. Okay. So that is chapter 2 basically now. That is chapter 2. That is the summary of chapter 2. I get it. I absolutely get this reasoning as to why Belle is even going towards the school district. It makes so much sense in this regards. And especially as we are rapidly getting closer and closer to the One-Eyed Black Dragon. Like I said, I think Danmachi's light novels will probably culminate in volume 28, 29. I think late 20s is when it's going to culminate. I don't think it's going to be before 25. At least I hope, fingers crossed. I still feel like there's so much more to explore here. At least before we take on the One-Eyed Black Dragon, I think there's so much to explore, you know, so much more of the dungeon to explore. And maybe that'll happen in Sword Oratorio, but who knows, right? And I feel like seeing more of outside of Orario and learning more about people outside of Orario is going to help Belle in some way, shape, or form, because you get to learn more about their experiences, their past, what have they been through, and all that jazz. And I think that's very, very important, right? I think that's very, very important. So we move on to chapter 3 now. Leon explained to Belle how classes work and brought him to the Balder class, which he is responsible of and has over 50 students. Belle felt pressured and almost said his real name during his introduction. Thanks, Belle. You're so amazing. You're so amazing, and you're so ready for just talking clearly here, mate. Nina offered the seat next to her to Belle, and then the floors the students are allowed to go by their level are set higher than the guild standards because the students are not adventurers yet. Wait 1 second. Let me try and understand this. The floors that the students are allowed to go to are set by their level are allowed to go by their level. The floors the students are allowed to go by their level are set higher than the guild standard because the students are not adventurers yet. Okay, so maybe they can't go to certain floors. The restrictions are higher, basically. I assume that's what this means. Summary is a little bit awkward, but I assume that means basically the restrictions that are placed on the class students are higher than that set by the guild because of the fact that they're not adventurers, right? So if, say for example, a level 2 can go all the way to floor 20, a level 2 in the class can only go up to floor 15, maybe, right? This is what I assume, right? Okay. Leon asked his opinion on how to make the dungeon training a more fruitful learning experience, and his answer was the same thing he heard from Aina. An adventurer mustn't adventure. Most students didn't understand what he said, but Leon liked his answer. Leon said that the recklessness isn't rewarded, and an adventurer must have a little of fear. Belle felt excited after everyone clapped for him and found their focus on learning very interesting. Belle especially liked how Leon took his words and rephrased it in a way that made sense to everyone. Leon then asked Nina to show Belle around the school, and then after Leon left, a bunch of students started asking Belle questions, which he managed to answer with some truths and lies. They were all kind, but then a dwarf named Igrin started making fun of his attitude and how he was still only level 1. Kind of ironic. Nina defended Belle and then showed him the academic layer. Since the school district is too big, she wouldn't be able to go through the control layer and living layer. There's also Jagamaru-kun, of course it was, being sold inside the school district. Why wouldn't there be Jagamaru-kun? Why wouldn't there be? Which they went into the store to eat together. Belle didn't know what to order, so he told Nina to go first, but he wasn't able to understand her order since it was too complex. Alright, let's read this order now. Her order was a Jagamaru-kun grande chocolate chip extra coffee non-fat milk caramel frappuccino with a chocolate sauce. Huh? What? What is that? So wait, Jagamaru-kun grande chocolate chip extra coffee non-fat milk caramel frappuccino with chocolate sauce. So basically she ordered a coffee. And according to Belle, it doesn't look anything like Jagamaru-kun, and knowing that if Hestia or eyes were to see it, they would hate it. Instead of valets, the school district uses banknotes called lognars. Okay, so they use actual banknotes. So basically the school district feels a very modern sort of structure and city, effectively. It's a very modern sci-fi kind of city, basically. I wouldn't necessarily say it is sci-fi, but it's more modern than, Orario. Orario definitely is more medieval, right? Using gold coins in the form of Valis. You've got generally, lamps and stuff, and it's much more, I would say, basic comparatively, right? So that makes sense. Belle doesn't have any yet, so Nina paid for everything. Belle tried to insist on paying because of Hayden's teachings, but Nina just ignored him. The tour of the academic layer ended with Nina and Belle in the Sky Lounge, and they had a party in the park outside for celebrating Belle's entry to the school. Nina asked Belle to call her by her first name since he had been referring her to her as Sultan. But Belle was surprised she is only 1 year younger than him. So Belle is 1 year young. Okay, so Nina is 13 then. Same age as I would say as... Who's 13? I don't remember who's 13 actually compared to Belle. Because Belle is 14, right? So Nina is 13 basically. Nina was angry since it seems everyone thinks she's older than she really is. She forgave Belle when he said he mistook her age since she acts so mature and is very pretty. Of course he said that. Of course he said that. Then they started talking about electives. In the department Belle is in, the students need to choose 6 electives to get enough credits. There are so many electives and it seems each race has its own language. Belle doesn't know what to choose aside from hero history, so Nina recommended a few classes including the one she's taking so that she can help him. Nina volunteered to help Belle prepare for classes right away, and Belle discovered she's just as rigorous as her sister. Oh no. That is tragic. Belle gets, lectures from Ana's side. Now he's getting it from the younger sister as well. That's great. That is absolutely great. Belle got half of the questions right, which surprised Nina. This so far, right? All of this, right? And I know I've just been reading it entirely, but it's been very interesting to read generally what goes down in the school effectively. Because it is basically an academy. I mean, that is exactly what it is. It is a school district. So of course, it's an academy, but academy, I should say, academy. It is basically an academy. So for me personally, it's very interesting to see how different it is to just Orario, Melon, and so many other places that we visited in the story so far. I think this is very, very interesting. However, what I am also curious on is how the school district is meant to prepare these students to be an adventurer also as well, because it seems like they do the basic things, but like for example, it feels like based on what I've read so far that a level 2 is effectively the equivalent of a level 1 in Orario on here because of that restrictions and stuff, right? Because they're not adventuring, because they're not going up against monsters, they don't have that practical experience that Orario has. So they aren't as, like, obviously their strength might be there, but they aren't as experienced in dealing with monsters. They're not as experienced with dealing the threats of the dungeon, right? So that's something that's very interesting, to be quite honest. While Nina left to return the books, Leon appeared asking how Belle's day was. Leon asked how Belle was able to blend in while most students thought he looked weak. Belle answered he just did the opposite of what his teachers taught him. Leon said that an adventurer still needs to go on an adventure, and Belle agreed, saying that there's no escaping it and that in the meantime he will prepare for when the time comes. Belle added contemporary history and apocalypse debate to his chosen electives, and Leon said that he will leave the third squad, Nina's squad, in Belle's hand. Very interesting. So that is kind of interesting. Okay, so overall, I feel like this, obviously, the way Leon has been interacting with Belle has been very interesting. And of course, if you guys didn't already realize, Leon is, of course, the Knight of Knights. Yes, he is the Knight of Knights. We know this from SO13. He is the level 7, and it's kind of nice to see exactly what Leon thinks about Belle, and of course what Leon thinks about adventuring as well. And it's curious to see how he's been able to keep up his level 7 status effectively, making sure that he is up to scratch and continuously growing outside of Orario. That's what I'm interested to discover about Leon, more so than anything else, of course, right? Chapter 4 now. Let's take a look at chapter 4. Ana is alongside the top brass of the guild during their meeting, as she's been a candidate to join their ranks due to producing a first-year adventure in a short time. I love how Belle's Liaris Freeze has basically made Ana like a top G effectively in the guild. That is so funny. Andrew Tate would be proud, to be quite honest. Andrew Tate would be quite proud. The meeting is about building an elevator that connects the ground to the deep floors. To help high-ranking adventurers and familiars save time. Interesting. That is a very interesting move to build an elevator that can help high-ranking adventurers and familiars save time. It is very interesting. Of course, let's read it continuously. Let's continue reading it so that we can see what they have to say here. They will use the orichalcum from the student district to build it so that it doesn't get destroyed. Aina questioned the safety of the elevator because, of course, you're going to be dealing some damage to the dungeon clearly while building it, right? But Royman dismissed it as Uranos has already agreed. They have Gnosis, which Aina doesn't know about, as proof it can be built. Okay, I guess that is fair. I can see that. They will reuse materials from Gnosis and will be able to build it in the open with much more manpower than the Evilists had. Of course, yeah, that is true. Of course, Evilists built Gnosis and the structures in Gnosis with so few people and trying to hide it from everybody. So that'll be very interesting. And then they also say that they will also have the technological capabilities of the school district so that they could complete it much sooner. They will start with the upper floor, middle floors, and then the 18th floor until they reach the deep floors. Aina was still doubtful towards this plan, same as Fells, but Urano still thought it was needed for the times ahead. Fells is using a part of Gnosis as his workshop, making something in preparation for the one-eyed black dragon. Damn, it feels like we're really rapidly approaching the one-eyed black dragon now, man. I mean, I know I said that, of course, we're close to it. It's like 8 volumes away, technically, I feel. At least my prediction is 8 volumes away. But it feels like we're going through it really quickly. Another thing is, right, I get the point. I get Uranos' point as well, right? So I hope they do it on the safety points, right? So I assume the elevators will stop at the safety points, right? I think that's the main thing that they need to target, is to make sure that happens, of course, right? But I get it, because rather than spending days and hours and hours and hours trying to go through the entirety of the dungeon, right? Why not just allow people to take an elevator, go down to the 40th, 50th floor or something like that, and go ham effectively? You get what I mean? I think that makes so much more sense as well. So it's going to be very interesting. I assume Bell's Familia, Bell's Familia will be able to tackle like the, floors 30 and below now. I would say 30 to 40, maybe a little bit lower than that as well. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how this gets executed. I get the point, and I can see where Uranos is coming from, but I also get Aina's and Felds' point as well with how dangerous the dungeon is. An elevator as well. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting. Okay, did they mention anything else about the elevator? Because I saw something, by the way. I did see something about the dungeon. Let me see this right here. Ganesha Familia. Alright, so yeah, this is what I saw. I had no idea what they meant by this. I just saw Ganesha Familia will be in charge of security, and then I just stopped there. But AP24 also mentioned Ganesha Familia will be in charge of security for the elevator. Because of this, there will be less security on the surface, and so the guild wants a new familiar to be a part of the military police. Which familiar do you think it will be? And somebody replied saying it could be the Freya Familia, which obviously, which can be converted now into the police. But who would put the bad guys in charge of the law, which is also true, because of course, the events of what happened in volume 17 and then volume 18, it's very difficult. The AP24 says the Freya Familia obviously could be a possibility, but if not them, then maybe Berbera, which is possible. I think that is also very, very likely. So we'll have to wait and see on that front, on exactly what goes down there and who ends up becoming the military on the surface. And then of course we know Ganesha Familia is going to take care of the effectively take care of the security of the elevator, make sure that it's protected effectively, right? In his second day as a student, Bell went with Nina to his ancient history class, which is being taught by Irun. As soon as the class started, she asked a question to Bell, which he needed Nina's help to answer. And then the next class is Apocalypse Debate, which is about the consequences of the one-eyed black dragon to the world. And images of the cities devastated by dragon-type monsters are shown. Again, this is very important, I feel. This is something that is very small, but very, very important. During practical class combined battle, Bell and Nina changed to their battle uniforms, and Bell still had the Hessian knife hidden away, but most of his equipment was not with him. Bell was asked if he could use any magic. Leon tried to lead him to deny it, but Bell said yes without really thinking. Thumbs up there. Igrant told him to shoot his best at his barrier, and Bell tried to lower the amount of mind in the attack. When they asked for a chant, the only one he could think of was Wells. It ended up causing an Ignis Fatus, and Nina had to heal him up. Bell became the first person in history to cause an Ignis Fatuus despite his magic needing no chant. That's crazy. Leon then announced that he was to join the third squad, causing 3 demi-humans to protest. The other members of his party included Nina, Dwarf Boy Igim Mars, and Dark Elf Girl Leggy Gigi. So the Dark Elf Girl is, I assume, the one we saw in the illustrations in the prologue. Of course, if you want to check out that video, like I said, that video has that Dark Elf Girl, I think. And Palom Boy Christia Elvia, all level 2. Unable to make Leon take back the decision, Iglim, it's Iglim, I thought it was Igim. Iglim declared that Bell would be their supporter. Christia is overconfident, and Iglim and Leggy each believe all the others are getting in each other's way. Despite Nina's pleas, the other squad members don't want to train together. Days later, the third squad in Orario is in Orario to do their dungeon practice, and while the other squad members are excited about Orario, Bell is taken aback by how different Orario is now with its festive mood. All the shops in the streets are offering things that would interest the students, and they need to follow the procedures at the guild before they enter the dungeon, but Nina didn't want to do it, so she left it for Bell to do. Very interesting. So obviously, because the school district is now in Orario, they have to set it up so that, you know, they can sell stuff to the students and everything, right? Makes sense. In the dungeon, they were following a weird T formation with 3 people in the front side by side, 1 in the middle and then 1 in the back. Nina tried giving orders, but the 3 in front just ignored her and kept pushing forward, ending up going all the way to the 7th floor. Iglim ordered Bell to finish the report instead of him because they took so much time that there was none left to study. Leggy finished the report, but Chris hadn't, so he begged Nina to help him. Bell went to deliver his report to Leon, but Baldur was also there. When asked how he felt, Bell answered that he was having trouble keeping up, but that he was excited to learn new things. Leon noticed at a glance that Iglim's report was written by Bell and asked him to call Iglim to come in the morning. This is very interesting because it seems like, it feels like the students, right? And this is what happens, right, in a lot of other stories as well. So I think obviously Amori's taken some inspiration from other, like, sort of academy, storylines and stuff, right? Where, of course, because they think that they're super privileged to be a part of this, very respectable school and being a part of this class, of course, the Baldur class, of course, right? And, being taught by one of the strongest adventurers in the world right now, you kind of have that overconfidence, right? And that's what's happening here, is that the students are having effectively a surge of overconfidence, and that they can be better than what the adventurers in Orario are basically doing, right? So that's something to note here as well, and that's something that's very interesting. They then talked about the third squad. The reason Bell was put there is because they will be decimated in the dungeon. They were originally from different squads, but caused problems and ended up being put together. The teachers can't stay with the squad due to various problems, so they allowed Bell to study there in exchange for him to look after it. Besides looking after the squad, they also asked that Bell help Nina with her problem. They didn't say what her problem was and asked Bell to hear from her as a fellow student. On another day, the third squad is on the 12th floor, having difficulty there as Bell expected. Bell suggested they retreat and Nina agreed, while the others tried to object until more monsters came, which forced them to follow Bell. Bell asked Leggy to use magic to plant mines while he distracted them with a poison bomb, and then the third squad had to defeat the infant dragon to clear their mission, but they had failed 4 times. Damn. The third squad was the first one to reach 12th floor alongside the Elite 7 squad, but now they had been overtaken by other squads. The third squad could easily go past 12th floor, but they waste too much stamina to defeat the infant dragon. Okay. Nina suggested they return to the surface, but Bell's instinct told them they needed to do it now. Bell thought that the third squad could only change when they are pushed to their limits, and Bell had a strategy to do it, which he thought of since he's at the rear guard where she could see more than the vanguard where he's usually at. Of course, Bell is a frontline operator usually, right? Now you can see him in the back line, and this is where I think a lot of people's frustrations of, a lot of people feel that Bell is not a good captain, which I completely and wholeheartedly disagree with, and that Lily takes up too much of that commander role. But that is the point of Bell. Bell is the front line, so he has to be on the offensive. He can't be doing multiple things at the same time. He is only a 6-month-old adventurer, 7 months technically in this story and in this light novel, right? And so of course Lily is going to have much more of an eye over exactly what's happening and being able to give better commands than Bell can, because Bell at the end of the day is in the front lines. So for me, I think it's now when we're seeing Bell being that captain and being able to use his battle mindset to be able to develop a strategy, because he's no longer in the front lines. The front lines is occupied by some other students effectively here now, right? So I think that's what is very interesting. But Iglim doesn't trust him enough to go with the strategy. Of course he didn't. Leggy trusted him since he gave a good order when they were retreating, and Chris just trusted him because he had fluffy ears and tail, so it must be a good plan. Nina also trusts him, so Iglim begrudgingly accepted. Nina and Chris baited the infant dragon, and Leggy's mind magic was used to blow away the imps and orcs, leaving only the infant dragon that was injured. The dragon tried to call for help, but the walls were already destroyed by Bell and Iglim. The party then ganged up on the dragon, defeating it. I love how it changes from Igrim to Iglim to Igrim, or whatever it is. The letters are a little bit off, but I assume it's Iglim in Japanese, and then in English it's Igrim. So that's something to bear in mind, because of course the L sounds like an R and so on and so forth, or the R sounds like an L in Japanese. So yeah. The success caused them to agree to fight together from now on, and then the squad wanted to exchange the magic stones with money for the party at the guild instead of at Babel. Nina didn't want to go but had to stay with the squad. At the guild, Aina called out to Nina, but she ran away and Bell followed her. Wanting to help, Bell, without his disguise, met with Aina in a restaurant and asked about Nina while keeping his identity as Rapi a secret. Aina left for the school district right after Nina was born to help their sick mother, and she initially chose to join the guild for a high salary to send back home, or send money back home. She only remembered Nina as a baby, since by the time she visited her hometown again, Nina had already left. She had only talked to Nina through awkward letters, but one day the replies to her letters stopped coming, so Aina started believing her sister hates her. Belle told Aina that Nina couldn't possibly hate her since she had a hurt expression when she saw her. Aina thanked Belle, and that's when Lily and Hestia called out to Belle from outside the window. Very interesting. That is very, very interesting. Horn had delivered a letter from Seer to Hestia, familiar with a cold face. In the letter, Hogni warned of a seductress near the White Rabbit and with a map and a location. I assume that's Aina, basically. I think that's Aina. After delivering the letter, Horn tried to bring a knife from Mia's place but got knocked out. And this is also when Ryu demanded an answer to her confession, which surprised the others. Oh god, it's a whole mess basically. It all turned into a mess when, with Aina demanding an explanation about the confession. Ryu becoming shocked after realizing her confession was broadcasted live. Hogni apologizing for not stopping them at the end. Hestia and Lily being loud, etc. Oh my god, that's just so confusing. It must have been a huge mess. I cannot wait to read this in the actual light novel, because this seems like it's just a funny situation entirely, where Belle is absolutely getting lambasted effectively from all angles. It's gonna be so funny. When Belle got back to the student district, Nina was waiting for him, blaming herself for making him late, but Belle said it was not her fault. The students didn't need to go to the dungeon the next day, but Belle told Nina he was going to go back, he was going to an internship back to Hestia Familia for a while, which surprised Nina that he already has his future decided, and became a tad depressed. Hestia Familia went to 22nd floor to test their coordination, while Belle and Ryu were still blushing when they met each other's eyes. Due to his experience working in the rear, Belle was able to advise Mikoto on how to better position herself before Lily could do the same. Lily got warned that her position as the strategist was being taken by Belle, but reassured her that her tactics and strategy are different. When Hestia Familia was returning from the dungeon, they found adventurers quarreling with the students. The adventurers left when Belle called out to them. The students thanked Belle but still acted rudely because of his invasion of the student district. Belle then has a bad premonition about one of the adventurers saying he would teach the students a lesson. Oh no. Yeah, I mean, that's, again, Pass Parade, V2, baby. Or I think it's at this point like V3 or V4 at this point, to be quite honest. But yeah, I assume there's going to be a Pass Parade happening clearly, effectively. But this is very interesting. Again, this is a point I made earlier on, right? In regards to Belle, you know, becoming a strategist, effectively learning more about tactics. Belle has never had to be in the rear guard. He's always been in the vanguard, up front, getting you know, the attacks off, being the offensive juggernaut for the Hestia Familia. So he's never had to literally strategize or be a tactician, and now that he's had the opportunity to do so, you can see that the skills are there from him as well. So I think that's very, very important to note when it comes to just generally what, how, you know, Belle's approach effectively. Now, chapter 5. I think we have a couple more chapters to go. So let's see. Nina was groaning while looking at textbooks, and Milia was surprised at her having difficulty studying. Nina clarified that she was actually making materials for teaching Rappy, and she was amazed at how he could keep up with her teaching. Thinking her relationship with him is a tad bit different from just good friends, and also noting he was similar to her dad. She's further amazed that Rappy could make the third squad work despite them not being in the same squad for that long, causing them to be among the top graders thanks to Rappy's occasional advice. There were some other students from other classes that were getting rejected by Goibinu despite the sword that they made, which was being empowered by a magic artifact. While the others were just impressed, Rappy pointed out that the part of the sword that has the magic artifact is more easily broken, which makes the entire sword unreliable for adventurers who tend to favor swords that last long. Very interesting. Nina's friends tried to convince her to aim for the guild again, but since her grades for the guild weren't very good, she refuses, feeling miserable that Rappy had already decided on his future plans. The third squad had already went through the 14th floor, so they decided to aim for the 15th floor. While he was checking the info in the guild, Bell noticed the spawn date for the Goliath was different from what he expected. The party was doing well on the 15th floor, but Bell noticed the dungeon was different than usual. That's when bad bats started spawning en masse. The floor collapsed and Bell used all his strength to help his squad escape, and Hercia was alerted of the collapse by Lily and was reminded of the last time Bell was in trouble of the 15th floor. This is volume 5 V2 basically. Volume 4/5 V2 basically. It's exactly the same. It's kind of interesting that they went this way basically. The third squad ended up being trapped on that floor with no way out. While all the squad members turned to Nina to choose what to do, Bell was reminded of when the same thing happened to him. He acted like Ryu to calm Nina down and then proposed they descended to reach the 18th floor, which is a safety point. Nina accepted his plan. Outside, Leon heard some adventurers saying they only wanted to scare the students by lying about the spawn time for the Goliath, but it may cause more people to suffer. Irun asked Leon to save the students. As the elite 7th squad aside, she was worried for the 3rd squad, but Leon told her to not worry since he is there. While abusing magic swords and Nina's healing magic, the squad managed to get to the 16th floor barely holding up, and then multiple minotaurs appeared. The magic sword reached its limit and they were cornered from both sides. The attackers were holding the monsters at the front, so the minotaurs attacked Bell at the back. Nina yelled at him to run, but he said it's alright and took 2 short swords from his backpack, obliterating the minotaurs really fast. After the fight was over, the others asked how he did that, and he answered he attacked the magic stone. When questioned about his physical ability, he said he had recently ranked up. Nina was still worried about Bell, but he told them to use the time to rest. Of course, at this point, Bell is still trying to hide his abilities, it seems like, of course, right, from them. But in this situation, to be quite honest, I think, he needed to make sure to tell them, like, okay, it's time now. It's me. I'm Bell Crenell. I'm that guy. But no, of course, it makes sense to obviously, to keep their trust there, to not run into any more difficulties with the squad, right? In this precarious situation, it makes much more sense to keep the identity hidden rather than cause more distrust and more panic, of course, right? Because if you approach it the wrong way, you are screwed and you're putting the entire squad in danger, especially now that you're under the dungeon and you're in a precarious position in the dungeon, right? So it makes sense that this is what's happening effectively. After resting, they quickly found a hole which allowed them to reach the 17th floor. The 3rd squad reached the boss room right as the Goliath was being born. They started running, but Chris fell, so Bell caught him and kept running. But since Nina and the others had also stopped when Chris fell, so they weren't going to make it in time. So Bell used a 1-second Argonaut to jump really fast and pushed all of them to the 18th floor. The squad weren't able to get an inn in Riveria due to the expensive cost, but Bell revealed his identity to Boars and tried to get a place, but none were available due to all the fleeing adventurers. So instead, Bell got camping equipment from him. Bell was going back to defeat the Goliath, but Boars told him he had heard from Mord that other students, Lefia's group, of course, had already defeated it. So this section, by the way, the Lefia's group section, was in SO13. So again, like I said, the story is moving parallelly. So keep that in mind, of course, that a lot of these stories are basically moving side by side effectively. The passage to the 17th floor had collapsed and wouldn't be restored in a while, so they had to wait in Riveria. Bell brought food from Boars, and then Feld started speaking to him while invisible. The other students were saved by Leon and are being taken care for in Gnosis while unconscious. Fels doesn't want other students to know about Gnosis, so Bell needs to stay with the third squad in Rivera for a while. Okay, Bell came back with camping equipment and the squad all praised him, and then they asked what his future plans are, and Bell... Oh, fantastic. Bell answered to become a member of Loki Familia since he couldn't say Hestia. Fair enough. I mean, touche. Listen, you gotta go for the best one out there, you know? You gotta go for the best one out there. Overall, I think this makes a lot of sense so far with what's been happening. Again, I love the fact that it's, like I said, moving parallelly, and there is some mention of what's happening in Sword Art Autoria, which is great. Of course, I know a lot more people want it to be more blended together, but at the end of the day, you have to remember that from a business standpoint, they kind of have to make sure that, you know, Sword Art Autoria can be read on its own for the most part, and same with main series. You shouldn't be forced to read the spin-off in order to understand the main series, and I think that's the point that they're trying to do here. Iglim wants to become a blacksmith like Tsubaki. Leggy wants to become an assassin as she's waiting for the Dark Elf royalty to defeat the White One, but she realized she can't do anything by herself in the dungeon, so she thanked Belle for making her realize that and deciding to train soldiers instead. Chris wants to become a knight and change the corrupt ones from inside as he wants to surpass Finn, and Nina still doesn't know what she wants to do. Later that night, Belle went to talk to Nina, and she says that she has no dream and only came to the school district on a whim. She has an older sister that she and everyone else is proud of, and Nina only entered the school district because her sister did so and didn't think much about anything else, and she's regretting it now. The first class Nina entered was the one that teaches about hieroglyphs, of which only a very few people are able to understand, and Aina was one of the few that graduated from the class, but Nina couldn't understand it at all. She tried the guild exam as well, same as her sister again, but she didn't succeed no matter how much she studied, so she ran away again. She kept following the same path as her sister but wasn't able to become like her, and she only transferred to the combat skill department because Leon gave her a staff and told her to use it, which made her get in a new magic ability. She was also better at moving her body than she initially thought. I assume she's a healer, that means, right? I assume, which means that it's very likely that Nina might be a part of the Hestia Familia come the end of this arc, effectively. Bell said that even if Nina doesn't like her current self, he had fun because of her. He learned the joys of learning, and Nina also helped the others in the party. He said that just like her sister, many people have been saved by her. Nina said he's unexpectedly a womanizer and thanked him. She said that people who have an objective like Rapi are much more wonderful than someone that just keeps going with the flow. Bell kept company to her even as she fell asleep on his lap. Oh boy, we're going there. Harem member number 95, Bell. Come on now, let's go. The next morning, Leggy wakes up and greets Belle, and Belle invited her to an adventure, which she accepted and let her carry Nina back to the camp. Belle asked Boris to be their bodyguard for a school trip to the floors below, and then the third squad were initially scared after what they went through, but Belle said that an adventure going down agreed to take them, and if they get something, it counts as credits. They went along with Boris and over 20 other adventures. The third squad were then surrounded by adventurers on the 24th floor. Belle wanted to show them the mystics and wonders of the dungeon. Just as Belle had planned, the squad members were amazed at the dungeon and the knowledge of the adventurers. Belle told Nina that what she actually wants to become is quite different from her sister. She thought she just wanted to become the same, and she was actually jealous and admired Aina very much so. And so she even wanted to become even better to show people how great she can be. Belle told her that she should be proud of the parts of her that are different from Aina, and the party was then on the 25th floor, and the squad was amazed of the Great Fall. Of course, the volume 12 Great Fall, we've seen that before, of course, right? Belle thinks this view was their reward for having worked hard. He believes that when people are deeply moved, their actions feel rewarded, which makes them motivated to do more. It's true. That is true. That is very, very true. A rare monster called a blue dragon then appeared. It swims in the air, and the trail it leaves forms an aurora. As they were taken back by the view, a blue crab attacked Iglim, but he was able to defeat it. But the blue dragons noticed them and then started attacking with its aurora breath, which has all sorts of stats debuffs. Belle wanted to run, but Boris said they have to defeat it since it can chase them wherever they go, and if they get attacked with the breath in a closed space, it'll be worse. The only way to defeat it was with arrows and magic, and this was outside the quest parameters, so Boris escaped from there and told Belle to defeat it. Bro, Boris is one of those guys, man, I swear. Belle tried to attack it with a Fade Magic Chant, but it missed. The breath was gonna hit Iglim, so Belle pushed him away and got hit it instead, which decomposed his equipment, but didn't affect his skin due to his eye abnormal resistance. Nina and the others were worried about Belle, but Boris held him back, saying he's fine. Nina ignored and chanted in new magic, a powerful, purifying magic field which can detoxify anything. So exactly, again, this is what I said. She is a healer, basically, a mage, effectively. She got a new objective to protect the person important to her. Belle thanked her and pulled out the Hestia knife while using a 4-second charge Argovesta to kill the dragon. At that point, Nina was reminded of Leon's words that they wouldn't tell her to do anything. Instead, she should search for it herself, and when she found something that made her heart tremble, she should embrace it, as that is her dream. Belle was worried about her, but she ignored and said she wanted to become an adventurer by his side to see many different sceneries. Belle's wig then fell and they all realized his true identity. What a classic sort of cliche moment, effectively. But honestly, I'm curious to see how the blue dragon looks. I hope there's an illustration for it that we can maybe take a look at. But that looks very interesting. Furthermore, overall, I think that this makes a lot of sense in terms of Nina becoming a part of the Hestia Familia, which she most likely will be based on this, right? And obviously being the healer, again, it was kind of predictable after what was mentioned at the start of the light novel, right? It was predictable after what was mentioned at the start of the light novel. And then just generally this sort of stuff with Nina, and of course how important Belle is to her now. I think it's sort of like, you could say it's like a admiration side of things, right? It could easily be that, but it could also be a form of infatuation as well. So we'll have to wait and see on that front. I feel like I don't want to necessarily immediately say that, oh, it's harem member number 95, you know, because, you know, there is a form of admiration as well, you know, that can happen with Nina as well. So for me, I don't think it's that problematic, as long as it's not just like, oh, you know, trying to, you know, get his attention towards her, you know, make him fall in love with her or something like that. I don't think that's necessary. As long as there's that admiration more so than anything else, and that is the most important thing, I think that's fine. Alright, we move on to the epilogue. Despite his cover being blown, the third squad didn't spread the news about him. Back at the school district, Leon said that Belle helped with Nina's problems as he had predicted, but Belle also surpassed his expectations. Leon then said he wanted to adventure with him now and called Belle by his first name for the first time. When Balder asked if Belle had spoken to Nina with Nina since then, Belle said that things were awkward between them, but she had excitedly said that she was going to meet her sister. Winter had arrived, and Nina and Aina. Also, winter is here in Orario now. Christmas next light novel for sure. I mean, considering Danmachi has like Christmases like back to back in the span of like 3 months, clearly this is gonna be Christmas number 55 maybe. Winter had arrived, and Aina was leaving the guild when Nina called out to her. Nina didn't remember Aina, so she introduced as if it was the first time they met. So basically saying, you know, Nina has never met Aina, and you know, so on and so forth. So this is technically the first time they met. Which is true. This is the first time they met, and Aina did the same. Nina said she was sorry for not writing back to Aina's letters, saying that she did it because she was hurt since she was always following her sister, but now in the school district she was taught a lot of important things by a person important to her. Aina asked if this person was a classmate, but Nina answered it was Belle Crenell, which shocked Aina. Nina said Belle is an incredible adventurer and that she was saved a lot by him. Aina was about to ask if Nina had fallen for Belle, but then Nina declared that she was going to join the Hestia Familia, surprising Aina. Nina completely ignored Aina's reaction and her saying that Belle already has eyes who he admires. Wait, so did Nina say that Belle has eyes already, or did Aina said it? I think Aina must have said it basically, but you know what, it is what it is. So I guess Nina just is ignoring that fact and is gonna go for him. Alright, fair enough. I don't like that as much, to be quite honest, but I'm not fussy about it. At the end of the day, that's going to happen. I hope after this there's no more, but we'll see. Nina made a promise that Aina should be the one to register as an adventurer, and that she would see, and then said that she would see a lot of new sceneries by his side, and that she would become an amazing adventurer. So there we have it. Honestly, I like this. I like this a lot. I really like this light novel based on what I've read so far. It's very much like a volume 8 and volume 15, but in my personal opinion, a lot better, in all honesty. We got to see Belle and see Belle develop as a character a lot more here, of course, right? As a captain, as a strategist, of course, you could see there, like I mentioned, right? He's learning more as we go along. And not only that, we get to see the world develop a lot more as well. One of the issues that I think a lot of people have with, the story right now is that a lot of people feel like Eyes is just not getting the spotlight. But I understand that. But Eyes needs an entire arc to herself. Chucking in Eyes right now randomly doesn't make that much sense. And yes, maybe there should have been an interaction with her. I think a lot of people feel like there should be an interaction with Eyes, but there's still so many light novels to go. It's not going to be done in one light novel. Like, it's not going to be the OEBD light novel when they're going to tackle the one-eyed black dragon, that they do all the development for Aiz and Belle's relationship. There's still a long way to go, and I feel like we're going to get there inevitably. It's going to happen. There's no doubt about it. I think what makes it so nice, right, is that there's good amounts of comedy, there's a good amount of world development and lore development, and not only that, you get to see some relationship developments as well with all these characters, right? Not only just Belle with, Nina and these other new characters, but also just generally with his other familiar members as well. We get to see them doing some dungeoning in this arc as well already. We get to see him already, interacting with the likes of Ryu for the first time as part of a familiar member, and so on and so forth. So for me, I really don't have an issue with this light novel. I think it's a fantastic, nice holding over light novel, especially after the insane amounts of action and events that happened in volume 16 to 18, right? And for me personally, I already liked volume 18. So for me, volume 19 is a great resting arc, and I think that's good enough for me, and I think they handled it perfectly. Amori Sensei did a good job here. The way he handled especially the start, right, with the Freya familiar stuff and of course the aftermath of the war games, I think it was really good. So for me, thumbs up. In all honesty, I have no real issues, no massive issues with this story. You guys can let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about this, of course, right? For me personally, I'm a-okay with everything that was in this light novel. I am actually curious to see what you guys have to say down below. And more so than anything else, I'm actually also curious to see exactly what happens in the original translation. Once we get the official translation, I should say. Some of these nuances that I want to learn more about, stuff like, of course, what we mentioned earlier with the strategy side of things, the general things with like how, Belle is going to work with his other familiar members, the sequence that we saw earlier on as well, right? I think with the Hestia familiar, which was in chapter 4, I think, right? I think it was in chapter 4 or chapter 3. It was in one of these chapters, right, where he goes back to the Hestia familiar to test their coordination, and the delivering of the letter from Seer to the Hestia familiar with the cold face and everything. I want to see what exactly goes down here. And yeah, just generally, I know some people will be a little bit like this guy said it. I don't know why there's so much hate. I think some people are pretty frustrated on the wiki, at least from what I've seen in the Discord and what I've talked to my close friends who have read who have read the spoilers as well. They were pretty happy with it, but I saw a lot of hate on the wiki, and I was kind of worried at the start of this video that maybe I might not like it. But honestly, yeah, like I said, the only criticizable part I would say is the fact that Aiz was not present. And even if Aiz was present, I don't want it to be focused on Aiz. Maybe like one sort of conversation, and that's all I would have wanted. I wouldn't have wanted anything more than that. So for me, it's not as important to have Aiz just be present and try and force that relationship to begin its development now. It should be gradual, and it will happen. It will definitely happen for sure. There's no doubt about it. There's no way it can't happen. Some people are saying that Aiz's relationship and development will not happen at all anymore, and it's like, no, that's not going to be the case, because Aiz plays a significant role in the story. So yeah, to me, I think it's a little bit unnecessarily overcritical, in all honesty, in that regards. I feel like people need to give it some time, and we can see what happens in the near future. But yeah, overall, very, very excited to read this when it comes into its official translation. A great resting arc. I think it also allows the Hestia familiar to develop. It allows Orario to develop, and then more importantly, it also allows Belle to develop, learn more about the outside of Orario, as well as also just develop himself as a adventurer, as well as a as a senior adventurer now, as a first rank adventurer. We get to see his development. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Again, I want to do a community reaction to this light novel, so leave your thoughts down below in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please be sure to leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.